Yep. So how many were there? 3?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Josie. Bruce and Alex. Rider cats is set. So, so it's officially 4 o'clock. So we'll get started with the usual crowd at this point. Okay, before I keep going into thesis statements, argumentative essay, are there any major concerns or things you want to talk about, bring up to the group as potential topics? Now's your chance tonight in particular, especially because I'm hoping you'll be working on your outlines over the weekend. If you're not sure, if you're wanting to talk about narrowing your topic down a little bit more, please feel free to do so now in the chat or like talk to us. Because sometimes you have a good, not sometimes, you'll all have great topics. It's just sometimes we struggle with how to narrow it down a little bit more. So does anyone have any main concerns about the thesis statement or your argumentative essay topic in general? It's like crickets tonight. So if I'm not hearing from any of you, you're not staying after class, you're not emailing me, I assume everything is going great and that you don't have any major issues when it comes to your essay topics and your thesis statement. Is that still accurate? I got a thumbs up from Alex. No one else. Sam. So you're okay. You're comfortable. You're feeling like this. You've got a handle on that. You're good when it comes to. I know for some people you've written essays before and you're not too concerned. But again, just let me know in the chat at the end of the class at some point in the near future if you're still struggling with narrowing it down or pinpointing exactly the take, the spin, the perspective you want to take for your essay. And then, so tonight we're going to finish with the thesis statement and the outlines. So I have put 2 examples and I'll show you where on D2L for like fillable or like templates, if you will, for the outlines, so that you know what I'm expecting for that piece. And then when I have all of those next week, I'll be able to really give you some pointed feedback if I see anything that could be narrowed, or maybe needs to be a little bit broader, so we can have those discussions after you submit the outlines as well. Because again, the whole point is if it's in smaller chunks and in like stages, we'll be able to catch a lot of the issues that may arise sooner than you submitting a final essay and it could have been stronger. Sorry, just had a couple of additions as I was talking. All right, so no, it doesn't seem like there's any major concerns right now. So we'll get started with the okay, move the little heads over. I'll get the hang of this by April for sure. When it's no longer relevant. Okay, so for the thesis statement, this was part of the first, so I'm going to split the PDF PowerPoint into chunks. So this was part of the first batch, first chunk, whatever we're calling it. That's on D2L. So here under week 4 thinking skills, week 4. So that was Tuesday's part. And then, like I said, when I talk about the essay outline and what I'm expecting, here are 2 examples. I have a Word in case people want to just download that and complete it right in Word, or a PDF version if anyone wants to do it old school by hand. You don't have to use either of those templates. It's just some students find it easier if they're just filling it in versus going rogue. So PowerPoint, the PDF PowerPoint is here, and this is part of it. But I said on Tuesday that we'll watch this together just to really make sure there's no final questions about the thesis statement, which will be part and is expected to be part of the outline. So again, you're not going to necessarily have your finished thesis and your final product in the outline, but I do want to see something, and then you can work and progress based on that. So nope, I didn't share my sound. So I remembered I didn't share my sound. Sorry, all right. So we'll watch this, like I said, about 5 minutes. I'm not saying it's the best resource out there, but I do like what they say and the way that they present it.
How to write a killer thesis statement, a la Schmuck. First of all, what do we mean by a killer thesis statement? Should this thing be armed and dangerous? Well, kinda. No, we don't want to see your thesis statement show up on the evening news. But your thesis statement should aim to kill with eloquence, suspense, intrigue, originality, and clarity. Here's an example. Humans are not genetically required to be meat eaters, so vegetarianism is the only moral choice to avoid the senseless killing of animals. It states a valid point, expresses a strong opinion, and can be supported with facts. Doesn't mean it's necessarily true, but it can definitely be debated. A thesis statement is that thing at the very beginning of your paper that tells your reader what this whole thing is going to be about. Right out of the gate, it tells your reader roughly what elements you will develop in the coming paragraphs and exactly how you feel about it. The thesis is the most important part of your essay. It's the heart, soul, and brain of your paper. Once you've got that puppy figured out, you're at least halfway home. How do you get to this promised land? Well, first you got to establish an issue or problem. Think humankind's negative effects on rainforests, the factors that enable politicians to become corrupt, the slow death of the film industry, anything ripe for the picking, and preferably something that is not without a little controversy. The thesis shouldn't be something like, the sun makes it hot outside, because you're not going to hear much argument from anyone on that point. Instead, it should be something interesting, something that perhaps your reader hasn't previously considered. Don't hold back, go right for the gut. To make sure you've got an interesting topic, ask yourself questions someone else might ask you. Play devil's advocate with yourself until you're certain you've covered all the bases. Is it something only you would find interesting, like how affectionate your dog is right after you finish walking him? Or would it appeal to a wide range of readers, like, anything having to do with primetime television or what's their name, the Kardashians? Is it something that can be argued empirically, like the rise and fall of the stock market? Or is it pretty much just going to be pure opinion, like what the best color is? Keep in mind that you're not just laying down the facts, you also want to get your message across. So be sure to express your thoughts on the issue. Take a strong position. It's not enough to state that for the last 20 years, America has actually become more racist than it was in the 1990s. If your position is that, maybe, I don't know, could be, who cares? It's an intriguing proposition, but it's not going to go anywhere if you plan on being wishy-washy. Either argue strongly for or against the idea. It's the only way you're going to bring your reader to their knees. Yeah! So what's a good thesis and what's a bad one? Okay, here we go. Good thesis. World travel is an essential element in any young person's well-rounded education. Bad thesis. There are some great places to visit in Europe, dude. Good thesis. More than anything else in our society, video games are responsible for the dumbing of America. Bad thesis. People are dumb. Good thesis. When an elderly person is deciding on a pet, adopting a cat is a far better option than adopting a dog. Bad thesis. Cats rule. Dogs drool. Get the idea? It should be broad enough that a large portion of your audience will be able to relate, but specific enough that you can zero in on a particular topic and really dissect it. Finally, you can't just state your thesis, drop the mic, and walk off stage. You'll need to bring some supporting points to the table. So be prepared to back your thesis up with some actual factual pieces of evidence. And while quality is certainly more valuable than quantity, have at least 3 supporting points. Any less, and your thesis is going to be a bit flimsy. Put all this together, and you should have a killer thesis statement. If you're absolutely stumped and can't come up with one on your own, you can borrow ours. It gets out on parole in about 3 months.
Big Fat Review. 1. Establish an issue or problem. 2. Express your own opinion on the issue. 3. Introduce supporting topics. 4. Have at least 3 supporting points.
Okay, so overall, I think to me, it summarized and explained it really well, but I just wanted to stop here because just be sure that you're not following the number 2 on the screen right now, and that this is not the time for your opinion. So like I said, it can be something that you do believe in. It can be something that started as your own opinion, but you're going to be stating and writing your thesis and the entire essay in the third person. So there's not going to be any I statements anywhere. And you have to base all of your arguments, and all of the support for your arguments are going to be factual. So they're going to be based on research articles of external sources that are going to come and support and prove what you're trying to say. So even though in the back of your mind, for the most part, students tend to write things that they agree with, you're not stating your opinion as like, me, Miranda, I believe this. No, you're going to be very objective, and it's going to come across and it's going to be written in the third person. So just keep that in mind, that even though it says it right there, and I shared this video with you, that's the point, that you just have to be sure that you cut your bias and all of your beliefs do not come across in your essay. So it's not a question here of what you do or don't believe in and whether or not I agree with you. It's what do the facts and what does the research and the sources say to support this particular stance that you're going to take on a subject. So that's what I wanted to, yeah. So Beth, exactly. So instead of opinion, it's your stance inside of the argument. Absolutely. But again, it's still within, you're going to formulate it in a more objective tone. So yeah, for sure, it's your stance, your side of the argument, the perspective or point of view that you're going to take on this particular topic, which for the most part, well, not for the most part, there's going to be room for debate, room for differing opinions. And that's what you're going to base your argumentative essay on. You're going to take one spin, one stance of many, normally at least 2, that someone can take on this particular topic. Any other questions about that piece? So again, the thesis statement and the outline, it's more like a checkbox to please submit something and follow what I'm asking you to submit, so that I can make sure that you're on the right track. But you're not stuck to anything that you're going to submit next week. If you change your mind, I told someone last week, I had a student who submitted a thesis and the outline had half their research done. And then what they submitted to me now in February was not the finished product in April, or whenever your due date is. They had completely changed topics altogether. It wasn't just they reformulated it and took a different approach. It was, they're like, I don't want to do this topic anymore. The research didn't support it, so she changed her mind completely. That's okay. That's part of the writing process, and it all depend on what you started with. So just keep all of that in mind when you're writing your thesis statement. And like I said, you can run anything by me between now and the due date for the outline. All right, so zoom by all of this because we did that Tuesday. And I wanted to show you the new pieces here. So for the outline, so outline is next, it's gonna say Tuesday. Next Friday, the 12th. Correct? Yes. Friday, the 12th. So this is what I want to see in your essay. Okay. So I want one or two sentences about the overall theme of the essay. You'll see there, this spot is directly linked to the two examples that I provided. But basically, like, generally speaking, what are you going to talk about? And then specifically the thesis. So if you want to look at it as like a theme and then a thesis, that's fine. You can break it down into a bunch of different sections, or it could be paragraph form, but I'm not expecting full paragraphs in your outline. So give me a general theme. So sort of like what I presented on Tuesday of like, okay, it's health related, or this is the particular area of health. And then specifically your thesis statement, which shouldn't be more than a sentence. It's going to depend slightly how you worded it, but that's what I'm looking for in what will become your introduction, but you don't have to have the introduction. And then, so after that, I want to see, not based on your thesis and reporting back to your thesis, what are the arguments? What are the specific ideas that are going to come to support and link back to your thesis statement? So I want to see 2 to 4 clear arguments about this is what I'm going to argue. This is, and then the support for each. So that's more point form. I still want complete sentences, no matter what shape your outline looks like. But they don't have to be full paragraphs or fully formulated ideas. I just want to get a sense of where you plan to go, where you're headed. And then if you have research, so under recommended, you can include it right now. I'm not asking for the bibliography right now, but if you know that you have this source that links to argument 2, you can put it in your outline. And then I see that you've already started your research as well. And then, yeah, overall, there is no set template. There is no set look to the essay outline. And if you want to think of it more as a plan for it, however it makes sense to you. But I want to see those pieces. So I want to see the general theme of the essay as a whole, specifically your thesis statement, and then specifically what are the arguments that are going to come and prove your thesis, and what are the more specific supporting ideas for each. So the traditional 5-point essay is one option if you want, but that's what I'm looking for in the outline. So this is a visual, this is not the visual outline. So this is one option based on what I've just said. So the fact that there's a general statement and then a thesis statement, that's what I'm looking for in the part that will be the intro. And then in the body, I'm looking for each of your arguments, so 2 to 4 arguments, what are all the pieces that you want to talk about specific to that? So if we're going with something like the death penalty, whether or not it should be brought back or abolished completely, whatever stance you're taking on, well, one of my arguments based on the topic or the thesis of the death penalty could be the related financial effects. The why is the financial impact good or bad, into how that links to my thesis. So that's one argument. And then, okay, more specifically, what financial impacts are we going to talk about? Is it governmental? Is it on the families? Is it on society? So that would be one way of going from the death penalty to financial, and then what branches off from that argument. So some people like this version of an outline or a template where it's very linear. I personally work more with a visual outline. So I try to give you both options. So it doesn't matter to me what it looks like. Just don't let the templates on the screen right now box you in. Present it and organize it however you want. It's your plan. I just need to see the sentences in whatever structure you want. Does that make sense to everyone? Do you have questions about either of these options? Okay, so those are 2. I couldn't find, this is a picture. I couldn't find the actual like source document. So if someone has the time and wants to submit it that way. And it can be, everyone works on computers now, but like, if you really want to like map it out by hand and take I don't know who has scanners at this point, a picture or whatever, that's fine too. I know there's software out there if you really want to go all out and use a full-on concept map, but it's up to you what you want to use. I'm just looking for the information that I already listed in whatever format works for you. So those are two. The more common option is this more linear outline where there's like tabs, and the more to the right of your, I know I'm the opposite right now, but the more to the right of your page, the more specific the information. This is for people who are maybe more visual. I use everything I plan everything out on like not a chalkboard, a whiteboard, because I can draw all of my little bubbles and links, which might not work for some people. So either way, whatever works for you. And like I said, this is a Word option that they both look very linear. So this is obviously please don't resubmit all of these pieces, but this one is the structure of an essay outline with the explanations in them. So that's one thing that you can do when you open it in a Word. You would just replace everything with your own information. Or this PDF, like I said, if you want to print it out and fill it out as you go. So this is, again, they're both very linear, but either of these, if you fill these out, totally what I'm looking for. If you want a different template, a different look, go for it. Just make sure you have all of the pieces that are listed here. All right, is that clear for everyone? You know what you have to do between now and before next Friday.
I have a question. It's Beth.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing the part where I would insert the counter argument.
So you can put it in, that's where it's technically, most people will count it as the fourth argument. So it goes back to how you'd like to structure your essay. And again, right now, I'm not judging the way that you've structured things. So if you have your three main arguments, your fourth argument can include all of your counter arguments, but especially in a plan, what most students will do is they'll just have it as like a subcategory under an argument. Did that make any sense, Beth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I wasn't sure if I needed another whole sentence for each argument, but if you're telling me I can put it all into a fourth one, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why it was harder for me to find the templates with counter arguments already included in it. And it's a good point, so thanks for the question, Beth. But yeah, so a lot of students find it easier to just dump or group all of that counter arguments into that fourth or last one. But yeah, for the purposes of the outline assignment, put structure however you need to for it to make sense for you. So keep track of them, and then you can decide later what it's going to look like in your final essay. Okay, so any other clarifications, explanations needed for the essay outline? So you saw two options of outlines if you want. Make up your own as you go. That's fine too. This, you can be inspired by this visual. No one's taken me up on it yet, but one year someone will surprise me and submit it in a visual format. And if you have anything else between now and then, question-wise, just let me know. So that's the essay assignment, the essay outline. I'm looking specifically for your your thesis statement, and a general plan of where you're headed with your actual argumentative essay. All right? Okay, I'm done saying thesis for tonight. I don't want to say it again. So if ever what I've presented and included in D2L or in the PowerPoint is not clear, or you're looking for even more resources, I found a whole bunch more that all have like examples of what a template can look like and different ways of explaining how to construct an outline. So those are all there for you to, if you need more. All right, so I'll make sure that, like I did for Tuesday, this chunk of the PowerPoint will be on D2L tonight so that I don't forget, and then you guys have access to it all right away. So that kind of bookends the first of the 3 thinking skills. So we did, this was the more critical thinking piece. It'll loop back to Bloom's taxonomy later on, either tonight or next Tuesday. So we're going to put that aside for now. And we're going to move to creative thinking. So so if I were to ask you the question, what does it mean to be creative? What would come to mind for you as either an example of someone who is creative, or an example of what is creative? What comes to mind when I say those words? You can put it in the chat, or I can play eeny, meeny, miny. Artists, Sam, yeah, that actually absolutely comes up a lot as the association between creative and creativity. Thinking outside the box, for sure. Yeah, Jesse, and problem solvers, Beth, for sure. Create something from nothing. That's, yeah, Alex, for sure for that one. That one, that's a big one when it comes to creative thinking. And then to add to what Alex wrote, not only the ability to create something from nothing, but to create something different or new from something that already exists. So really, really cool examples. And I'm also with Sam that initially when you think of creativity, we tend to think more of like arts-based disciplines or careers or people who are artists, which would include musicians or painters, all of those arts that we were taught in school. Our mind maybe initially goes to that, but then like was put in the chat, it goes way beyond that. So this visual kind of kind of shows you that creativity, well, it says that creativity is everywhere. So it's not just artists, it goes to engineers and inventors and people who are pioneers in their field. So here I like the visual because it gives you examples of the person who created the hybrid car or anything, well, it says Google's Cafe for virtual meetings and things like that. So more to what Jesse, Beth, and Alex put in the chat, it's beyond just being creative, it's thinking in different and innovative ways. So it's a very, we have these initial, not assumptions, but we relate it initially to something arts-based, and that's not wrong by any means. It's just a lot broader than what we think of. So thank you for the shares, because that's really cool. So for creative thinking, some of these slides are pulled directly from the old textbook. So the 5 things that would be directly linked to someone who thinks more creatively, or that's their like go-to thinking skill, would be people who, this goes back to growth versus fixed mindset. The fact that you can become creative, you can like exercise that muscle of creativity and develop it. And it's just like anything else. It can be very contextual. Like you can be very creative and think creatively in certain contexts over others. The fact that you're curious and you explore different areas. So for me personally, my new job is I work a lot with code and HTML and Bootstrap and things that I never thought I would even touch, let alone I'm starting to understand it. So it's the fact that now I'm comfortable enough I can't write code, but I'm comfortable enough in playing with it and figuring out what does this div do versus what does this break line do, or whatever the case may be. It's still very basic, but that's building and further developing my creative thinking specifically for a task that I have to do at work. And the fact that for me, especially, like personally, I find that I have to be I have to test it on my own. I got to see what I'm able to do and how far I can push it, how far I can get before I want to ask a colleague. So this morning, I just couldn't figure out how to make it do what I wanted to do. So I sent my colleague the code, she fixed it for me and sent it back to me. But I needed that time alone to figure things out and explore and try it myself before I got other input. So that's something else that creative thinking encourages. The same thing as risk taking. So the fact that I'll just keep using myself as the example, but personally, I'm no longer scared of breaking things when I'm playing with code, because like Control Z is my absolute best friend. And the fact that I'm improving every day and I'm getting more comfortable with using the code and what it is able to do within our online courses. And then finally, the fact that I'm not always going to get it right. It's not always going to do what I wanted to do. Half the time, the stuff goes all over and I lose all of my columns and things like that, but that's part of it. So now I remember what I did, and then I'll probably repeat it a couple more times, but that's part of that whole thinking process. So accepting that mistakes is part of that learning. So all of these thinking skills overall, the three, they all are part of us and the way that we think. It's just we have to, like anything else, exercise and practice those types of thinking skills if it's not our natural inclination to want to do these things. Because a lot of people will have approached the same problem in a different way, which is totally okay. That's part of who we are. So if I were to give you, okay, so this is just like the creative thinking chunk. These are ways that you can ask questions of yourself and of other people to promote and encourage creative thinking. So the fact that, the slide before it is exactly this. I just prefer the visual to the list. You have access to both. So it's the fact that you're able to brainstorm with other people or yourself. You're able to be in someone else's shoes, take different perspectives and points of view when approaching a particular task or problem. The fact that, again, you're taking risks and it's not, I know I have a backup to everything, so I'm not scared to play around with code because I know that the backup exists, and if worst case scenario, if everything goes away, I can always look at that. So I don't know how big of a risk that is, but it's still something that encourages me to think of different ways of coding stuff. And then being able to learn from the experience. So the same thing about learning from your mistakes, and then actually applying it. So all of these thinking skills, it's not just about knowing what your brain is doing and how to encourage it, but actually building off of it and continuing on is important, especially. So I get really excited about this, and I don't know how you'll take this, but I love this section of the course because I found a bunch of brain teasers, and this is a way to activate all of the thinking skills, but really specifically to creative thinking. It's how different people will come up with different solutions to these brain teaser problems or scenarios. So the first three are, I don't even remember what they're called. It's a visual puzzle, you'll see. And then the rest of them are scenarios about how would you solve the problem. So something like this, what does that visual represent? So what is a term or a phrase that you can read from that image? So these are Rebus puzzles. And this is one way to get your creative thinking going, is by trying to solve these types of visual puzzles. So what does that mean to you if you see that visual? Okay, I'm going to give you the first one so that you get an idea. Sort of, Alex and Sam, you are super close. So it's not just invaders. I think it might be a movie, it might be a book. So it's this piece right here that you're missing. So there's a space, invaders. Exactly, Sam. So that's the visual, the solution to this visual puzzle. It's space invaders. So that's, think about that now when I give you, there's two more. So this one is an expression. And sometimes it's this is where this will hurt your brain or it'll get you thinking creatively, but this is where, so Sam is either Googling these or super good at these puzzles. I'm going to go with really good at these puzzles because sometimes we try and interpret things so much that we don't see the literal of, we literally see forgive and forget. So that's what the solution is to that one. So sometimes we try and get too analytical and think too hard on a particular topic. And really it's super obvious now, but in the moment, not so much. And then this one, so I try to do them maybe a little bit progression wise, a little bit harder. The third one is nobody's gotten it yet. So this is a little bit of all of it. It's taking literally what's in front of you, but you kind of have to analyze it a little bit more for this one. And this is something this one is a full-on sentence you would say to someone. So this was like the culmination challenge-wise. And to be honest, I don't even remember how it started. I just remember the end part of it. Oh, yeah, Beirut got it. So you're full of below me. So you're full of baloney is the solution to that particular puzzle. So I don't know if you're enjoying these or not, but I like them. And this is getting your creative thinking, activating it more. So keeping those in mind, those were visual puzzles or Rebus puzzles. The rest of them are scenarios. So if I were to give you this scenario, two girls ate dinner together. They both ordered iced tea. One drank all their iced tea very fast and finished 5. And the other one drank very slowly and in the same amount of time only drank 1. So the girl who drank 1 died while the other survived. All the drinks were poisoned. So how did the girl who drank more survive when the girl who only drank 1 died? So these are more logic-based puzzles where you're activating pretty much all 3 of your thinking skills. So analytical, creative, and practical. And if you really wanted to, your practical thinking would be Googling this and finding their response. So some students, every year someone comes up with something slightly different. And it's very interesting to see what people think of because it kind of shows you, it shows you that everyone will approach this slightly differently and a lot of different options are actually possible. But I have one answer. So if you think she drank 5, the other one drank 1, everything was poisoned. How is that possible? Yeah, so Beth and Jesse, that was my biology, chemistry students every year fought me on this one because whether it was like the girl's metabolism or like her, like the structure inside her body, so digestion, all of those pieces played into it. And I'm not here to say that that's not possible because I have no idea. And so that's one option. So everyone's going to approach this slightly differently. So the solution, again, is the one that Google told me, but it doesn't mean it's the only one. But if you think about all the drinks were poisoned, But it doesn't necessarily say that the poison was in the drink itself. So iced tea was an important clue there. If you literally think of ice cubes, that's what happened. The poison was in the ice. So the girl who drank really fast, the ice didn't have a chance to melt. Whereas the girl who took her time, the ice melted into the drink. So that's one way of interpreting that particular logic puzzle. But again, it's the fact that everyone's coming up with different ways of solving this. And I'm not here to contradict Jesse and Beth because I don't know what the biology, chemistry, science aspect of it could be. So just getting you thinking, getting you seeing different perspectives, that's the whole point of creative thinking. So we'll do one more. I think I have two more. You guys can do them at home if you want. So a woman had two sons who were born on the same hour of the same day of the same year, but they were not twins. How could this be so? So what are the options? And people came up with all kinds of scenarios in which there's like different family dynamics, constitutions, things like that. So that's totally something that is plausible. They're not biologically related brothers, Jesse. Yeah, that's doable. I honestly don't remember the answer to this one. I should have double checked. So a woman had two sons who were born on the same hour of the same day of the same year, but they were not twins. How is that possible? Okay. So again, Jesse, if I thought hard enough, maybe that makes sense. All of the solutions might be possible. One of them is, yeah, one's adopted. That could also be absolutely be true, Emmanuel. And then for this particular example, they're not twins. They're part of a set of triplets, quadruplets, whatever. So a lot of different options again. And that's what's cool is that everyone's going to interpret it slightly differently. And that's what creative thinking is. So I don't know, there might be another one. I just wanted to present to you this one. I don't know if anyone has done it before, but I have done it and it took me like a week because I lost patience completely. And some students have done it before. You can Google the answers, but this is a really cool exercise if you have the time, or maybe you can solve this way faster than I could. Because I don't have creative thinking is not my natural inclination. So the scenario is there's 5 houses and each house is a different color and a different person lives in each house and there's a different pet in each house. And then what's the other thing? There's a different drink attached to each house and a different exercise attached to each house. So 5 houses. And so the next slide will give you a breakdown of each, all of the clues. But your goal is to figure out who owns the zebra and who drinks the water. So that's your end goal. And it's a list of like 10 to 15 clues. So if you look at all of these clues and you try and solve who owns the zebra, so what house does the zebra live in? The person in the house, and who drinks the water. So based on all 14 clues, the ultimate goal is that to answer that question. So this is something that, listen, again, I talk about all this spare time everyone seems to have, but it's a really fun one. And you can Google the answer. I do have it on the next slide, but I've hidden it in case someone's super intrigued and wants to figure this out. But the way that you approach this and the way that you try and solve it will show who you are as a learner and the type of thinking skills that you're utilizing, because we did it in a group. It was part of a training that I attended, and we were able to use whatever, however many people wanted to work in the same group. And we had access to the boards and paper and pens. So you can approach this any which way. Again, me personally, I'm visual. So I drew 5 little houses and I had my colors and I just kept going. Some people will do like a matrix almost, kind of like an Excel sheet to try and determine all of the different pieces. So everyone will approach it differently. But this one personally took me forever. Some people solve this really quickly, but this is a really fun exercise to do. if you're interested. So this is creative thinking at its finest. And again, I hid the answer, but it's easily found on Google. Just if you're doing this, make sure that you associate it, find the answers to this particular set of details, characteristics, traits, because they're slightly different versions of the countries, the pets, and the drinks, depending on where you found it. So I will leave that up to you if you decide to check that out. But I think it's super fun. So that finishes, if it would just move, creative thinking. So it's not a big chunk of time put on creative because it's just so broad and can be just examples are everywhere of creative thinking. So the last of the 3 thinking skills for tonight is practical thinking. And for practical thinking, that's very much based in your emotional intelligence. So going back to the fact that you're able to interpret your environment, how you and other people react. Practical thinking is very much based on experience. So what happened in the past? Did it work? Did it not work? Will determine if you're going to use that same solution or follow like the same steps because it worked. Or you're like, ooh, I can't do it this way because I know that it didn't work last time. So practical thinking is very much based in your experiences. That's a reminder, a refresher on emotional intelligence in case you forgot. All those pieces play into it. I think my keyboard must be dying. Okay, so keeping that in mind, that practical thinking is very much based in common sense, in things that you've done in the past that you're repeating because they've worked well, and things that you're avoiding because in the past they didn't work well. So keeping that in mind. Okay, we're going to try this and we're going to see how it works. So I'm going to break you up into rooms. We're going to try breakout rooms tonight. And I want you to chat as smaller groups about this particular scenario. So if people couldn't see colors, how would traffic lights work? So like the North American tradition of them being vertically aligned, and you have, it's been so long since I've driven, green, yellow, and red. So if we couldn't see colors, what are all of the different options to organize and create traffic lights that will work without colors? So I'm going to break you up into rooms and you're going to discuss as many different designs as possible for non-colored traffic lights, for lack of a better term. Okay. So I'm going to assume you're all familiar with breakout rooms, but if not, you're going to get a little prompt in a minute that says, go to this breakout room. So click that. And then you'll be split up into, we're going to try 3 groups. Okay, and I, as a prof, I'm going to circulate into each group, check in on everyone. So remember, if we didn't have colors, what would a traffic light system look like is what you're trying to discuss as a group and come up with as many options as possible. Okay, so you should get, I'm going to give you about 10 minutes for this, and you should be getting the little pop-up momentarily to join a different room.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, right. And building on that, I was thinking that like turning signals would be arrows pointing in like either a left or a right direction, and then when the signal ends, it would go back to the X, like you said. That's a good one.
Would you keep it in the straight up and down that most people are used to? Because there's some cities where they're kind of sideways.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting question because aside from like directions and signals, I can't really imagine what else you would do with a traffic sign to kind of make it easier for someone who's colorblind. I don't know, it's strange. Like in the crosswalk. Yeah, right. You hear that downtown, I think. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so that would cover like the audio portion of it, and then so you have audio and visual, and then not really many other senses that you drive with.
So do you think the shapes that the X, the S, and the check mark are distinguished enough? Like they're clear enough between the shapes? Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking even an arrow facing up. If you're going to use the arrows to the sides, you could also use the check mark and then an arrow up. Yeah. I think they're distinguished enough. Mm-hmm.
I know. How do you visualize yellow? Like into a marker, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that works really good. Like an S would make sense, and you would assume that if this was the world that we lived in, that they would all be explained in driving training as well, right? That the S means slow down or caution, right?
Because I was thinking of the yield sign, but if you put that shape you're yielding something else. So it does need to be different than just the caution or yield.
Yeah, but then they might get confused with turtle crossings. I've seen that before.
Yeah, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a circle would be like a lot of people might mistake for like a stop sign or something.
Yeah. And yeah, I can't see far away, so I think I would be able to decipher those if I didn't have my glasses. A 1, 2, and a 3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It'd be exactly like the crosswalk, but just a car version.
Oh, so add in that extra, even flashing or numbers.
Like numbers counting down, right?
Eventually, they're just going to stop our cars for us. I have a Honda Civic, and they have that Honda sensing on it, so my car will just brake for me. Yeah, it's kind of freaky the first time it does it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Bye.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many colors before. I'm so used to little black squares. You've got beautiful backgrounds, everybody. It's really fun to see not just your name. Are we missing a group? What is?
Mine is not a green screen. This is my son's room.
There is no judgment on color palettes because this is the tamest color in my house. Is this turquoise? No judgment.
I just bought a house in like last spring, and my entire basement is neon green.
Yeah,
my son would love that.
My brother had that color
down there because it was too loud. It was giving me a headache.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's such thing as too loud. My brother had that color green, Beth, with like a royal blue accent. It was so loud, even for me. Anyways, so yeah, no judgment whatsoever on colors because I love them. All right, so from what I heard from the groups, so a lot of you came up with very similar solutions, but it's very cool to hear that all of you thought of at least one thing, I think, that differed from each group. So I think consistently, all of you thought of shapes, correct? Like whatever the shape may be, circle, triangle, square, you all thought of shapes in some form as one option. Then we had symbols, I think. Okay, so you're nodding like I think all of the groups, I don't know if you all took the same approach to what a symbol in your mind, what you saw as a symbol. Sorry, Jesse, I saw you nod first. So for you guys, symbols was what?
We didn't really talk about specifics when it came to symbols. Symbols was an option.
Okay, cool. And then
I think when we're talking about the symbol, what came to my mind was like how there's like the crosswalks and there's symbols on the crosswalk for stop and like go, for how that could also be implemented in like the traffic light setting.
okay, so I think that's in line with someone, I can't remember which group, you had like an X for like don't cross, something along those lines. So the little dude that shows you to walk versus not walk. So like sort of letters, or I don't want to say emojis, but something along those lines of an easily recognizable symbol. Okay, cool. So we've shaped symbols. What's the group who had the shades or the gradients? So that was, were you in the same group?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was just the fact that one would be like super dark. The yellow would be like medium, less dark, and then whichever word you did, that's what you saw. I'm thinking ombre when we talk about interior designer hair colors, where it goes from light to dark. Did I understand that right? That was one option. So shading. Okay, we had one group create jobs and have people, I don't remember how she said that, but like a person to direct traffic. I don't know if anyone else came up with like, let's create some jobs for people. And that's different and new. Traffic controller. I don't know what the job would be called.
Somebody in group 1 came up with robotic traffic controllers.
So traffic control, human or robot. Okay. This one is new. No one ever came up with that. People really stuck to like the traditional lights on a post. Okay. Anything else that comes out as like really out there?
We also talked about like your car could have like some sort of system or like sensors that could like kind of like realize when it should stop and when it should keep going. So like if it's red, they should like automatically stop. They cannot keep going. So
just adding on that, we also like talked about how like expanding on what he said, like maybe like have a like sensor at the like traffic stop that sends a signal to your vehicle to stop, and like lets you like sends a signal to go.
Man, I just feel really like, I don't want to say old, but that's some really new technology. And that's this is the first year that you went even beyond that and just went, wow, who needs the actual traffic system as a whole? Let's just, I mean, we're almost to the point where you're like self-driving cars. It's very interesting solutions. So we had those.
After you left, we had 5 more ideas.
What? Okay. Well,
Okay,
you've appointed yourself now.
Well, I've written them all down because everybody had such great ideas that I was just like, seriously, this just keeps happening. So
okay,
first we had sounds, symbols, words. Then we had signs. Then we have sequentially flashing lights to indicate different things.
Yeah.
Then we had the grayscale color system. Some sort of projectile sparkles that would come out of the traffic lights for different. Yeah. We had a radio signal that would either make something in your car vibrate or tell you needed to stop or control the car itself. The car indicates through vibrations, and the robotic traffic controllers.
Wow. Sorry. The visual of the sparklers just threw me right off, but I love it so much. So sounds came up, sounds and flashing. I did hear other groups talk about that too. And I really like, I don't know what are those, are they called rumble? The things on the edges of the roads. That's what it made me think of when you said vibrations. those, I think they're called rumble strips, something along those lines. Wow, this is amazing. I listed them, I wrote them all down because this is the most, just, yeah, very creative people in this group. So that was really exciting.
Lewis was sharing in our group that they have cars where people who are blind can drive. So he kind of explained that it says left and right, and I'd never heard of that. So I thought that was fantastic. So he was talking about how you could add that to the signal and stop. So then it's an audio piece of it. So that was really cool.
That's super accessible.
Yeah, we had the arrows. And for we went with the symbols with the S for slow. So we were trying to see if they were distinguished enough. And then the other one for the slow would be a countdown.
Okay.
Between the two.
Very cool ideas. And this, because it happened, I think it was last year. Anyways, it was recent that when I was presenting this scenario 1 year, there's don't quote me on the country. So our traffic lights are vertical. So there are countries where the traffic lights are horizontal. So right then and there, you can already see them more, like, because anything taller than my car will block the lights for me. So one thing was the fact that it was horizontal, and then all of your ideas of symbols or whatever would go that way. But there's a country in which the light lights up the whole pole, all the whole post, pole, whatever English people use. So it's not just the traffic light, it's the entire pole that the traffic light is on. So it was in line with, I mean, I told you the colors didn't exist, but the whole post ends up red. So you can see it like miles away that the upcoming light is red. So there's all these, because it made me think of it with like accessibility for people who are blind, accessibility for people who, then the reverse, people who can't see. So anyways, these are such amazing ideas. Thank you for sharing. And that just proves that you were 3 groups. You all interpreted symbols differently. Everyone had different ways of explaining shading and flashing. So very cool and very good use of your creative thinking. Jesse saying Western Canada has them this way. Is that what that was? Okay. So definitely not here.
No, as soon as you get out of Ontario, all the lights are horizontal. And we have about, 500 meters before the light, there's warning signals. So there's 2 lights that flash when the light's going to turn red.
Oh. You don't like guessing? Come on, you really got to be on your toes and pay attention in Ontario. It's like, ooh, behind that truck, what color is the light?
No, we have a lot of really straight, boring roads. So people need something to keep them occupied, I think. Because we don't.
Oh, that's the difference. Our traffic is just too exciting. So, okay, all right. All right. So, thank you. And I've been to the East Coast. I don't even remember. I guess I wasn't driving. I don't remember what they look like. But I've never been out west to know that. I think Ontario is special in a lot of regards, but apparently also with traffic. Okay, so trying to reassess my time frame here. I'm just going to wrap up briefly. I have 2 more slides to show you. And then we'll stop there for tonight. So the whole thinking, and then how it's going to relate to research and critical reading, that will keep going next week. So we're going to end with this final scenario to hopefully just summarize all of the 3 thinking skills. And then, like I said, I'll just stay online if you have questions about the essay outline or thesis. So, sorry, I'm like, in my mind, I'm presenting it to you and I'm not, so that doesn't help. Okay, we'll head over the bar that I keep losing. All right, so this potentially is something that you've heard of before, but and this used to be in the exam for this course, because I really like the way that it kind of summarized all of the thinking skills. So critical, creative, and practical. So the scenario is there's two boys in a forest. The first boy's super smart, and the second boy, not so much, or so academically they say. They're in the forest. There's a huge bear in front of them coming at them. So the first boy, who's super smart, is like in his mind going through the math, calculating how fast the bear's going to come at them with the seconds. And he's doing math in his head. And the second boy, who's not as smart, you see him taking his shoes off. So then the first boy, the smart one, asks the second boy, "What are you doing? You don't have you can't outrun the bear." And the second boy goes, "I just have to outrun you." So I mean, it is funny, and I just love the visual that this represents, but it also really, I think, clearly gives you all three thinking skills. So the fact that this first boy, who academically and everyone would describe as smart, really focused in on those analytical thinking skills about all of the math and the calculations. And he took it very linear in that, okay, I don't even know whose brain works that way. Mine certainly doesn't. And then the second boy, super creative and very practical approach to it, analyzed the same situation they're in. And instead of focusing on that math aspect and doing all of the math, he went, there's two of us. I mean, only have to be faster than one. So I really like the visual that this creates. And it's super cute, and the fact that the practical thinking is technically both boys. He's leaning towards calculations and analyzing, and that's probably worked for him in the past in more academic settings. Whereas the second boy most likely has been in a situation of speed running or whatever, and recognizes that based on experience and based on other scenarios like this, he just has to change shoes. I think they say change shoes, take his shoes off, and be prepared to outrun the kid. I would have just cried, but anyways, that's me. So I really like this. So that kind of sums up the three thinking skills. And then just one more slide of, really do think my keyboard died. One more slide for just like ways of encouraging, promoting critical thinking, which is at this point all of the skills. So just asking questions, questioning basic assumptions, I think for a lot of people is not I don't want to say it's unnatural. It's just the whole question of why and so what, and okay, it's worked in the past, but why can't I change things? And the fact that, it's always been done that way. Being aware of how you normally approach a particular problem or topic or task. And is that having an influence on the current situation and context? Reversing things. So kind of like the kid, he kind of flipped that scenario right on its head and went, I don't have to outrun a bear. Evaluate the evidence in front of you. So more specifically in that more analytical thinking, but it does apply to all. To think for yourself. So that's a big piece. And I think especially for creative thinking, that whole going and kind of trying to solve the problem or the task alone first. And then absolutely comparing with other people is going to help broaden your perspectives big time. But it is still important to kind of have your own thought process as well. And then finally is just the fact that nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to think and analyze every single situation and employ all of these thinking skills perfectly every single time. And that's okay. So just giving yourself a break of like, you're going to learn from it and it'll help you moving forward. So I'm going to end there, and I'm going to put that chunk of the PDF online tonight so that you have access to all of those resources. We'll continue on with thinking, reading, researching next week. So next week I'll really focus on those tests that I was referring to Tuesday about how to analyze the validity and the reliability of the source, the library databases to which you have access to. So we'll move forward with the essay specifically, but it's still all in line with these thinking skills. So that's where we're headed next week. So different different approach, different perspective, but still under that thinking umbrella. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you everyone for sharing these amazing ideas. I still have firework projectiles in my mind, but they were such fun ideas. So yeah, I will leave you with that. Happy Friday Eve. That's my new favorite thing to say. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns about the thesis statement or the essay, like I said, now as we log off, or by email. And yeah, happy weekend, and I'll see you all Tuesday. Bye.